can't do this just yet. Practice makes perfect.
You look like you really enjoyed it.
My spirit is spent. I can't do this just yet. spirit is spent. I can't do this just yet.
Good morning, good evening, or good night, folks. I'm your host, Simon Redhand, and welcome to Gaming Redhanded. I just figured I'd do an update video on my build. I ended up finishing the league today. Finished up my 36 challenges. I don't care about getting the totem unlocked. I threw some gameplay at the beginning there. I'll probably leave it running in the background while I'm filming this video here. My original goal this league was to do a two-hand mace using bleed build with the glad, and it had some hiccups. I was able to get into early red maps, but I was seeing some deficits in terms of where my defensive layers were going to come from. I was not able to really find a way of surviving with a two-hander. I'm glad. And I don't think there is a way, really. I think that most of the two-hand survivability is based on stuff like endurance charges and stuff like that, which is like juggernaut specialties and stuff. I looked over the tree and I couldn't find anything here worthwhile. I messed with almost everything. I messed with fortify, I messed with all that stuff, and I eventually had to just fold it all up and just drop the two-hand mace, go classic axe and shield, just because it was a combination of not being able to find good slam damage for bleeds. I didn't like the way Earthquake felt, even though I messed with both amplification and the classic version. I was able to get the bleeds down, the AoE clear good. It was untenable on bosses. Like in normal juiced map bosses, I could not deal with them at all. It was literally just a battle of attrition where you're just sitting there fighting back and forth, nothing dying, and I was just getting frustrated with it. Couldn't figure out a way to fix that. Tried ground slam with bleed, couldn't work. Tried sunder, didn't like sunder. So eventually had to just basically say this build is the wash. But also a combination of that build not initially working and the fact that I immensely dislike this league mechanic. I was just like, I don't even want to experiment further and craft further to try to figure out how to make this work. I'm just going to go to something I know is going to work. I ended up pulling out the last rate of hemorrhage. Went to sword and axe and shield, and just ended up using that to end up finishing my challenges. I was running some super juice maps here as I put up in the video there. Mainly focusing on delirium and ritual, because I actually like ritual, even though people don't like the way the balls are, the explosion balls, the rest of that crap. I did like rituals. I kept ritual on. Kept on beyond. Harbingers I always keep on. Shrines I always keep on. And I kept using I think my setup's still in here. Beyond Script Invasion, Monstrous Lineage, Hunted Traders, Adversaries. I just put this in here to test out how it would feel. But I was originally using, let me go into my stash, because I was building up a collection of what are they called again? Sorry, delirium maps. So I was using these scarabs for the delusion scarabs, right? So I can get my delirium scarab, my delirium map stockpile going. So as I get them, I keep running them, and as I get any T17 versions of delirious maps, I just sell them. And then anything that drops that isn't my favorited map, I just make my map runners run it. So that's what I was doing. I was able to make some good currency. As you see, I have nothing left. I ended up burning quite a bit of it. Converted quite a bit of it, and I burned through like 20 so divs in the last hour or so. Finishing up these gloves here, trying to fix these gloves here. And then after that, I was just like, all right, league's done. Nothing left to do. I don't care about getting 40 challenges. I never get 40 challenges. I always just go for the costume effects. I don't care about this totem. I have never placed one of these totems in my hideout before. I was working through some of these. I almost worked my way through. I was going to go through level 100, ended up being level 98. Figured I didn't feel like grinding anymore. Definitely wasn't going to do this one. This one here itself is worth its own little rant. But we'll go from there. So let's jump into the path of building here. This character here was capable of doing all the Uber contents. Not all of them. Did Exile Shaper. A pain in the ass, and then I get bored of them, so I just bought the Eater and the rest of it. What else?
What are you looking at?
Was able to do the challenge for the 250% quantity. What was it called? Let me find that challenge. The Nightmarish Nemesis challenges. So I was able to do these on your own. It is capable of doing T17s. Actually, rather easy. The the boss fights are a pain in the ass, but if you and you know you drop like 100 chaos each time you try to roll one of these stupid maps. So other than that, once you find a map that's not going to break you on the fact that the mods themselves are egregious, it's rather simple to do with this build. I did like how it felt. Like this build is probably one of the tankiest builds I've played in a long time. Let me go through real quick and set up the tree here. So you know, build is using frenzy charges through Blood Rage. Got max endurance charges. We're at 8 thanks to 2 calm signs. We're also using Bloodstorm, but we're not going to check that. We're not going to check Warcry. We're not going to check Pride, Max Effect, none of that crap. I have Onslaught permanently thanks to my my Battle Cry setup. My Warcry Battle Cry setup. What else here? We are fortified because fortify is in the links. What else is here? We blocked recently, but we're not going to check that because it does screw with the numbers a great deal. Warcry has been used recently. It's on auto. It's on auto exert, so it's always being active. Enemies bleeding. Enemy is moving because it's aggravated. Anything else here? Oh, boss. Put this on Guardian Shaper. We're gonna pull up Lacerate, Hemorrhage, Double Slash, and that's pretty much where our damage is at. You throw on Pride Aura. I got 13-14 million if you sit in full effect. We're gonna leave it on initial. So 11 mil DPS. This is compared to my my Stormburst build last league. This is rather low. Stormburst got up to like 60 something mil. Like something. Actually, no, it was like I think it was like 40 mil, 45, something like that. Anyway, so I'm not used to these kind of numbers here where like you're struggling to do bosses. You can do them, but it's like you're very slow. You have to actually deal with the mechanics, and you just have to recognize it. Some of these bosses have some of the worst mechanic designs, not because they're hard, but because they're just a mess to deal with. And then you just gotta kind of put up with that kind of crap, right? As you see here, some of the cool stuff of this build here is to make sure it's not checked. Now that my potions are checked here, got what's called physical damage reductions at 90% capped, or armor capped here. We're block capped, both block capped and spell capped. It's the survivability on this build is crazy. Effective hit of 423. If you go and actually check the have you blocked recently, it just goes to infinite because the Shaper shield I have on it
where we headed today?
the Shaper shield I have on has recover 5% life when you block, and ever since that mod was on the shield, you can't even register the effective hit pool anymore because it just says infinite at that point. But other than that, I mean, it is a very strong build, but I would not say melee is at a point where I would have people suffer through doing a melee build again. I did not really enjoy doing it. The AoE clear on it was awful, just awful. I'm gonna put the POB in the chat here, and you guys can check it out here. But what I ended up going through for was making sure I max all the block nodes here. So as coming through, made a point to pick up these 2 block nodes. This is really all I really needed, right? Was the aggressive bastion, which is a 10% chance to gain endurance charge on kill while holding a shield, but then also getting the mastery for the 1% chance to block damage per 5% chance to block spell damage, which equips shield, and also as the mountain for the increased maximum block, and for the mastery here for the block spell 1% chance to block spell damage per 5% chance to block attack damage. And these 2 nodes are pretty much enough to get you there, along with getting Defiance. And of course, you need to have versatile combatant, right? And those are the only defensive nodes required. For a bit, I played around with, like before I hit number 98, I played around with having Fortify capped out here, getting to 26 stacks, but it was kind of unnecessary, right? I was working my way towards getting Adamant, just because I do have guard up constantly due to my battle mage support. But I was gonna get Adamant just so I could have a bit of more duration on it, but it was completely unnecessary. Like I didn't need the points for this. I could easily just put it over here to my my stone here, my cluster jewel, and had more damage over here. But I know a lot of people who did this build, they went for the blood magic. However, I stuck with the mana pool. So in order to control my mana issues, I had to get 3 points here, which is, well, I was originally over here for this one, along with the 12% increased mana mastery. However, I moved over here because I ended up getting the Light of Meeting, which gives you 6% physical damage to all jewels and radius. This is basically I don't want to say it's build enabling, but it is definitely boss enabling, right? Once you got this jewel together, once I got this jewel, once I got this cluster jewel together, once I got this Watcher's Eye together, I was finally able to just do map bosses without banging my head against the wall, right? So, but it was in order. Like I got the Restlos's Coil first. Once the Restlos's Coil was in place, then I went for the Light of Meeting was next, and then I got the Watcher's Eye, and then I got the Cluster Jewel last. I originally wasn't gonna get one that was not as expensive with just like something else in the back here, because I was only gonna do this because I wanted to keep this cluster on. But I ended up getting the Furious Assault cluster so that I can end up getting that if I feel like getting the points in there. Because I'm using an auto exert Warcry setup, I have this cluster here, which is a added small passive grant exerted attacks deal 20% increased damage. And I use that for lead by example, because every time you Warcry, your nearby allies get onslaught for 4 seconds. And then Warning Call, which is just another massive armor boost, right? And in game, like, it's not bad. Like, let me jump in game real quick, and you can see like my mana reservation is here, and I have no real issues maintaining my lacerate, no real issues maintaining my attacks. I use Blade Storm with a unique setup here, which I have mana leech in there just so that I have some mana regen on bosses, stuff like that. I get to a boss fight, jump in there, throw the mana leech, I put the Blade Storm on, and while it's spinning, I have no trouble maintaining that. But I also keep the Enduring Flask going too, right? But this is just so I don't have to run Flask while I'm doing while I'm fighting bosses too much. I can just use this, Blade Storm's in there, and then it's fine. All right, I'm able to leech mana while I'm fighting, and then that's it. I'm able to maintain my skills. This is how I've been bossing and doing stuff like that. What else? I think I know a lot of people don't really use this, but this setup here is what I've been rocking for my vulnerability and my molten shell. So we'll show it off here because I don't think a lot of people recognize that Battle Mage Cry, even on auto exert, still triggers the spells here. So we can go into I don't really feel like opening a map right now, so we'll jump into Bloody Aqueducts or whatever real quick just to show it off. So when you're in here, like, it's shouting out the war cry, and that's just so every time I go, any attack I do, it's gonna automatically cast vulnerability. And then you can see my molten shell's automatically running, right? And then I have onslaught running because of that lead by example. I think that link is worth using, and I think a lot of people can't really use it because they're doing the blood magic support, all right? And I still have Pride on. I still have Pride running, I still have Vitality running. I'm still able to run everything, and my mana is fine, right? So I like this setup. I actually will look for more ways to fit this setup in, but it's hard because I don't use too many melee builds, but I'm definitely going to keep it in mind for future builds because I like this over cast when damage taken. All right, let's head back to the hideout here. Did I even bring portal scrolls? I don't think I did. All right, hold on, let me go back. Oh yeah, what else here? Everything here is mostly self-crafted here. There's a necklace here. A lot of this, so my biggest issue with this build is like the investment required. I remember this is close to like 150, 200 days worth of investment. And I remember if I did this similar investment into my totem build last league, I'd be well into 50, 60 mil DPS. Whereas here it's like barely eking out 15 mil DPS with Pride maximum stacks, and it's like, all right, barely 14 mil. Yeah, you could do bosses. Yeah, you're survivable as heck. Lucky block is amazing, but then it's like, it's just not, doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good to me. I know people like melee, but to me it's just like, it's your own form of torture if you keep playing melee. I'd probably not play melee again until Path of Exile 2, and that's just to see what they did differently. And even that is after I play with my main, which is Necro. I usually play Necro. I just haven't played Necro in a few leagues just because there's nothing really interesting going on with Necro the last couple leagues for me. But yeah, so re-reacts with the fractured attack speed on here. This action is actually pretty good. The DPS it pulls is 611, right? I once this axe was here, it was used to replace Jack the Axe. Jack the Axe was what I used well into red maps, well into deep farming red maps. It's actually such a strong axe, and it was actually hard to replace that without crafting something on this level here, right? Other than that, nothing else really unique or special going on with the gear here. This shield here is also another milestone, getting the chance to recover life when you block. This one here is another one that I have to go strive for. This is the only really important stat on this shield, is the chance to recover life when you block. It's the reason why I have the shaper base. Everything else here is just about filling in the holes, right? So once the uniques are in place, which is, the build doesn't really have too many unique requirements. It really is only Lossless Coil. The endurance charges were taken just because of the fact that you could double dip with both the passive here, which gives you 3% damage over time multiplier per bleed damage, and the new changes to damage reduction for elemental and physical. It made it worth stacking more endurance charges, right? What else are we looking at here? Anything key to pull out in this tree to speak on? I don't think there is much. I ended up changing a lot of these nodes here to 5% increased physical damage over the strength nodes they were offering. I think this is about 8. I think I did here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them, right? And even after doing that, my strength is still a good number, 283. I think I didn't do one more because my armor itself required a bit more. Well, the armor I had on before, I probably could have done some more. I was wearing a difference in the arm before the new Legion sets that had a 254 requirement, right? And I think I didn't put it on because of that, right? I didn't go any lower just so I could keep that armor on until I changed this chest piece here. I think that's it for now. I think the reason why I didn't want to experiment further, because I did want to mess with Divine Retribution, I did want to mess with Warden a bit. It was just the lead mechanic was really turning me off. Managing King's March was really turning me off. I ended up maxing out all this for the challenge, of course, here, and I got the runesmithing table, and everything about this system here completely turned me off this game, just because there's a bunch of cool stuff here that you cannot use. A bunch of restrictions here. I made a video on it. You guys can check it out. It's a bit long, it's a bit ranty, because I went through every enchant one by one just to see what they were and what they could possibly offer. And by the end of it, I was just left with there's some cool stuff here, but because power runes are rare and prohibitively expensive, and time runes were also rare and prohibitively expensive, that none of this is worth using, right? None of this is worth putting on your gear. On top of the fact that you don't have many options, because everything is so hyper specific that you go through here and it's just like, okay, what can I actually put on here that would be cool, right? The stuff that would be cool, like chance to be we look over here, chance to be taken over by a haunted spirit or whatever, the tormented spirit would be cool. Wand only. The +1 to all is here. They would be cool to add to your weapon. When they are here, they're staff only. Like, there's a bunch of cool stuff that is here. And not only is it crazy expensive, I went through the prices on the other video. Some of these are equaling out to be 20, 30, 40 divs. Some of these are up there in the area of like this here, because it takes 13 power runes. This is well over 100 divs just to do this chant here, right? So I was like, it doesn't make sense, because right now the power runes are what, they're 6 divs each roughly. So this is just over 80, just close to 80 divs almost, right? Just do this enchant, right? So you can't even experiment. I don't know who this is for. To me, it's like if you have the territory to drop 50, 60 plus divs on a single enchant, you might as well buy a Mage Blood. Do you have a Mage Blood? And if you have a Mage Blood, you don't need any of this shit. Your build is probably done, right? You're probably just doing this because this is just for the hell of it. But you're definitely not doing this to enable any builds. You're not doing this to experiment with any builds. Nothing like that. This is the enchant I wanted. I wanted exerted attacks deal 80 to 100% increased damage. Of course, this is not available to anything but a staff, so you can't even mess with it. So I was like, all right, well, I can't. What can you put on here? The only thing you can put on here that is functional for this bleed build and reasonably inexpensive is physical damage. And also, you can't roll it. You can't change it. Once you put it on, you can't do anything else. You can't keep pumping to get 25%. This is it. This is what you're stuck with. There's no way to scour. There's nothing else. But when you go in here, it's like there's nothing here that I could possibly use. I said in my other video that they need to stop fucking around with this spell. This should be a skill gem already. This being a trigger, some new nonsense. Just make it a skill gem already. Make Spectral Wolf a skill gem already. Anyway, side note, side ramp. It's all the basic flat damages, which could have been cool. It's an extra explicit almost, so these are not bad. chance to poison, chance to bleed. This is too low to matter. I guess if you pair with another chance to bleed, you get like 35%. It might free up a node, but the way the bleed nodes are set up, I couldn't find a place to take these out because you need the notable, but the travel nodes give you the chance to bleed. So you can't remove chance to bleed because you need a nodal anyway. So either way, you're kind of forced to get chance to bleed. This is the only cluster where you don't have to get it. This cluster here, you can forego for duration, but then you have to waste an extra point to get across with. That's not worth it. And then this cluster here, it's just only chance to bleed, right? It's either you want 2 points of chance to bleed or just want 1 point of chance to bleed. This is made a bit better because of the fact I have Light of Hope here, so it does alleviate the extra chance to bleed, but getting more chance to bleed doesn't matter because it doesn't allow me to free up any points. If I could free up a point, I don't even know where I'd put it. I've honestly tried so many things on this tree where it's like, this is literally the best damage I could squeeze out of this tree. I tried going over here for a bit and going right to Veteran Soldier. I tried coming over here. Like I tried different pathings until I eventually got to this pathing, right? And it's like survivability is down. It's completely done, but there's nowhere else to find damage. I theory crafted some medium clusters. I even theory crafted trying to get double clusters in here, and it was just like all of it was like more juice or squeeze for the same amount of juice. It was all like similar damage. So you're dumping even more investment in here in this, and you're getting the same numbers. You're kind of topping out at 15 mil or so. You could probably go. I could probably go way off the reservation here and just get like a helmet with like reduced reservation, get a simplex necklace or something that was some more reduced reservation, and then anoint it with sovereignty. Yeah, not sovereignty. Sovereignty. And then that way I could squeeze in pride and malevolence. Right? If I get some more mana reservations and I can get 2 auras running, pride, malevolence, and probably like a level 12, 13, 14 vitality along with my auto exert, and then I probably squeeze in a bit more damage. That'd probably give another mil or so damage having malevolence aura running, but that's like another like 30, 40 div investment to do that. I don't think it's worth it. I think the main issue comes from this being so weak. This bleed sucks. This gratuitous violence is terrible. The radius of the explosion is so small that it might as well not even be there. I found myself using domination shrines to fish for the chaos buffs just so I can get actual screen-wide explosions from corpse explosions and stuff. I even felt like it was better because for a time I was using banners. You see my first video, and it was better to even use this awe and terror, but I had to give up banners just because it required an investment in this wheel and an investment in this wheel just to make banners feasible. And I don't understand why they did that. I feel like the default state of banners should be this notable should be on every banner gem without investment. The ability for banners to stay active for a few seconds when you leave. But the way it is now, if you're going to use banners at all, you got to come down here, which is off beaten path, the middle that you're not going to be really going down towards, and you're going to take this. You have, because you need to get to 100 valor. And if you're going to do this, you have to take the increased banner effect, because what are you doing with these nodes and not taking these nodes? And then over here, this node is terrible. Where's it at? This node is terrible. The 3 endurance charges, 3 frenzy charges when you place in max stacks, because this becomes harder to achieve when you get more points going here, unless you're using the mastery 5 value when you develop a work right, and you have it linked to about 4 to 5. So when I had this running probably on my 200 side, I had 4 skills on auto exert, and I was manually casting 3 banners. I was manually casting 3 war cries after that. So not 3, 4, and I was manually casting 1 that had exert, and the other was just enduring cry. That wasn't for the exert, but it did help with the charge. And I also had perfidy, which I still have in here somewhere. Perfidy is still, what tab is that in? The tab there. I was using this perfidy when I was leveling up. I didn't 6 link it, but I had to use it because banners are unusable without that first line on perfidy. It says having a placed banner does not prevent you gaining valor. You need that line. In order to make banners feel good, you need to have this line. However, this armor is not something you should invest any money into using for long term, and that's the problem. So banners have to be phased out. As much as I like banners, I don't even put it in my build anymore. It wasn't worth the point. It wasn't worth the investment. It wasn't worth the hassle of trying to figure out how to make it work. Even war banners not even worth using, in my opinion, just because you can have it up once a fight. You can't recharge it. The only way to properly recharge it is with war cries auto exerting, and you need to invest into a 3-point wheel, 4 points into a wheel to do that. And the only option I had on this tree was this. And the problem with Defiant Stand is I need Valor Gain. I don't need Duration, and I can't get to Valor Gain I need to make it usable, right? Without putting in, what was it, 6 points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. This is not a good investment, but this is what you need, because in order to make it work, even with one War Cry and Enduring Cry, you would need to have more Valor Gain. But this is the smallest cluster I can get to, right? So this is 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4. I could go this way. This is 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points to get to this one. And then here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to get to this one, right? But this was not worth taking on its own, because you need more. You need to get more points per war cry to get to the point where this is usable, and you can't do that unless you take one of these clusters here, which is these 3, or one of these clusters over here, which is you have only these 2, right? So you need increased Valor Gain. And another thing Perfidy did was Perfidy also allowed you to kind of release some of that pressure, because it gave you, well, I got a 46% roll. It's 25 to 50% value roll gain. 40% I felt was good enough for like this. When I had this on and properly spec'd into it, I was crushing a war. I was at the point where I was maintaining all 3 war banners, and it was fine for survivability on my 2-hander, but the damage was just not there. So I had to give up that. But I probably could have kept it going. But unfortunately, during this league here, I ended up breaking my hand. So using a build that had a bunch of buttons to press became problematic. And so I had to stop the banner rotations. But I probably could have got that tweaked out if I made a proper 2-hander, etc., etc. But the playstyle itself was not fun, because your defensive layer relying on banner placement is kind of crazy. Anyway, that rant's over. Yeah, so the last raid of hemorrhaging worked out great. The league mechanic itself is very disappointed in the management of it. I don't like managing the towns. I did not like managing the mining and the shipping and all that stuff there. I imagine this is going to go core in some elements, because people do seem to like the gold. People like being able to come over to their mappers and crank this open, and your mappers got money waiting for you here. I do think it's kind of cool that but I don't like running Shaper maps and Elder maps and Guardian maps. I hate fighting all of these bosses just because they're old mechanics and a lot of waiting around for them to do essentially stupid things. So I like being able to put this map in here and then coming back in 20 minutes and getting a fragment out of it. I like that. I think that's cool. I liked opening this up and then, having a ship show up and having some currency. I even liked having a situational boss be there every now and then. But I did not like babysitting the gold. I found this to be one of the most expensive, most time-consuming mechanics. It added a new level of anxiety that I did not like, because there's times where I had to stop moving for a bit, and it was just like, oh, my gold is draining. Oh, my coffers are empty. Oh, I got to go grind some more. I got to go back out there and put in my 9-to-5 work on top of my 9-to-5 work to make sure my town is running. And so I didn't like that feeling, but it was cool to come back to this place every now and then, open this up and have a divine in here. I was getting roughly maybe 1 or 2 divines every 3-4 hours once I actually got this running. However, this thing is nigh useless until you got a bunch of level 10 mappers in here. And of course, before I started recording this video, one of my level 10 mappers died on a 1% map, so which is another rant-worthy issue, because before he died, this was all at 1%, and I was like, oh, these are all good, and then he dies, and now I gotta replace him, and I'm dropping. So because I'm dropping the league, I didn't bother trying, but I was spending like 100k an hour on this trying to get mappers, and I haven't even filled up my 3 map devices yet. I only have 1 running. That was I think 3 10s and a couple 9s, and then one of the 10s died. And then I have this one that was running until I finished the challenge and I turned it off. And this one here is just a bunch of low-level guys who were running early yellow maps, and I turned that off also after I got this all finished, right? So now I was going to maybe run a bit more and finish this challenge here, but I ended up finishing a different challenge instead to get to my 36, so then I didn't have to do that. But I imagine that this league is gonna, a lot of the mechanics are gonna stay standard because gold is pretty cool. People seem to like Faustus, even though there is some kind of, you know, quirkiness going on with the currency exchange, and the price is not really lining up with the website. But people do seem to like this. I do like the idea of respecing for gold, even though this is rather expensive and almost impossible to make use of, because it's 23k. I currently make like 22 to 23k a map, so it would literally take 1 map per point to get this out. Or you can take the time, the currency you made from that map, and just buy 40 regrets, you know. So people keep arguing that this was supposed to be for maps, but I couldn't respec in maps with this because it was too expensive, and I couldn't respect in the act with this because it's too expensive, which is what people said was the intended purpose. And once I got to maps, I definitely could not respec with it because I needed that currency to maintain my sweatshop. So yeah, I think this is a good idea in theory, but it's a miss on its implementation, and they definitely got to change that. I didn't use this at all. I didn't even bother wasting gold on this because there wasn't enough gold coming in to even consider gambling it on this shit. So whatever they have in mind for that, they definitely they shot narrow, but it definitely missed the mark they're looking for there. They got to make some adjustments on that. They brought back Sentinel, which was pretty cool. I love seeing Sentinels on the map. I think Sentinel's a cool mechanic. They also brought back the Wildwood Wisp, which is an awful mechanic in its current state. When I see Wildwood show up on my map and I enter it by accident, which you can do, there's no way of exiting it, so I end up having to log out and log back in because it's actually terrible running Sentinel. What else? I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else they brought back. This league itself, I just wasn't having fun with it. So finishing one character and getting the challenges and getting out, I think that's the plan for this league. Next league, I plan on doing a Power Siphon Miner, or Penance Brand of Armageddon, or Hex Blast. Something strong, something abusive. If PoE 2 doesn't come out and have its beta by then, and if PoE 2 has its beta by then, I'm just gonna play that. This build, it's the POB is gonna be in the description below. If you guys like it and want to ask some questions about how it felt and how to manage the mana and all that stuff there, leave a comment down below. I'll answer some questions on this build here. You know, it's an okay build. It's definitely viable. It's able to kill Ubers. It's to do T17s. It can super farm currency. It's just, I don't like builds that require this level of investment but this level of payoff. And I think Melee in general is kind of in that state where you invest in so much currency and you're not getting much back in return. And I just feel like even though you can get it to where it needs to be, I just don't think I don't enjoy it. I don't think Melee has hit its mark yet. I had a bit of a rant coming on for the passives that I kind of got distracted on, and it's this. I think that this entire tree here is kind of unfinished, right? We have this node here, which I said in my other video, it's one of the worst ascendancy nodes I've seen introduced to this game. I think it's just an absolutely god-awful ability. And then you have here where it's like, this is increasing your chance to bleed, and it's giving you bleed explosions, but nothing here is giving you bleed damage. I guess technically Jagged Technique is, but there's a unique item that does this. There's a unique item that makes you count as though you're already moving, right? So this here in and of itself is not okay for an ascendancy point. I think there needs to be more bleed damage somewhere, like actual 20% more bleed damage on some of these nodes here. This here needs its AoE radius increased. It doesn't scale on off anything except generic AoE, which is only this node here, or these nodes here. This node down here will scale it. Where's it? Which one is it? Area effect for endurance charge will scale it, but even the scaling it gets, it's not big enough to chain off itself. And the fact that they don't cause bleeding themselves means you cannot spread the bleeds. Right, so you cannot spread the bleeds, you cannot proliferate the bleeds, you cannot cause chain bleed explosions, and it makes it kind of useless. right? And if I could, if these two were switched, I would stop at aggravate and I would go over here and get war of attrition. I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't even bother with the rest of this, and I would be able to get my 15% chance to cause bleeding somewhere else because I was already overcapped on bleed. So it was like I would get it somewhere else and I'd be fine, right? My chance to bleed right now is, what's my chance to bleed at? I'm pretty sure, I know I'm over 100%. 150%. Because the bleed, the lacerate gem itself gives 25% chance to cause bleeding, and my gloves are Giga Juice Exquisite Searing Exile Eater World mod, right? So that's giving 25% there too. But if I could, I would definitely spec right out of this node. Take aggravate, go war of attrition because this is stupid, right? And then that's it, and then keep pushing. But you're forced to path through this, and it's not a good node. It's this node itself needs bleed damage on it to keep up, and it needs the ability to allow your allow your explosions caused by this skill to cause bleeding. And if it did that, then this node would be worth it. Everything up here is great. Lucky block is amazing. Can't really complain about this. This is kind of a staple. You play Glad, these are cemented in your build. I don't know how you do anything else. I don't know how you do retaliation, but these points never move. You are getting more than skill on every Glad build if you're smart. More than like I was thinking about how I was going to do Divine Retribution with the Glad, because I might still do that next league, because I do think that skill looks very cool. And I was just like, all right, well, I'd have to get more than skill. I'd probably get measured retaliation, probably get war of attrition, and that's where we're at.
What's up?
All right. But I think the biggest problem having with Divine Retribution was like, how do I make a retaliate build based on Fist to Thunder down here? We'll theory craft that later. I think that's it for now. I appreciate you guys for dropping by. I'm going to be making some videos on Once Human coming up now until next league, because I'm not going to be jumping on this unless I get invited to Path of Exile 2 beta, which is probably not going to happen. And then I'll make videos on Path of Exile 2. But for now, I'm going to be jumping into making a couple of videos on Once Human. I like I said, I wasn't having fun here, so I didn't put up too many update videos. I was just like, let me just power through and get out of this league, because I was not enjoying it. I appreciate you guys for giving me your time as always. Thank you guys for dropping by. Like the video, comment down below if you disagree with me. Subscribe to the channel to show some support. Have yourselves a good morning. And if this is the only video you watch me today, good afternoon or good night.